This will be the first mess of greens I have had in quite some time, so I am pretty excited. Love cool weather and eating a big old pot of greens. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having a fantastic day. It is Tuesday, October 17th here in South Georgia, and today's video is all about greens. We're going to check on some greens here behind me. We're going to harvest some greens for supper tonight, and then we're going to plant even more greens. So let's start out by checking on some greens. We got a beautiful bed of Savanna mustard here. Now, I messed around earlier today and let these get too dry. I came out here this morning and a lot of these were wilted down. Some of them are still wilted. Some of them have recovered a little bit. I gave them a nice little splash of overhead water. They're slowly standing back up. So this past weekend we had several days of drizzling rain. Didn't get a ton of rain, but it was just kind of steadily wet for several days there. And I was thinking, well, I don't need to water for quite a few days since it's cooled off a little bit. But I forgot, these raised beds here, they drain so well, they don't hold water near as well as our in-ground garden. And because we've got these Savanna mustard greens planted so thick here, they're just sucking up the water. So I'm gonna have to make a mental note to check on these a little more regularly. That way we don't get any more wilting like we got today. Now, while these are large enough to harvest right now, I'm probably gonna wait a few days, let those leaves recover a little bit. Then we'll come through here and just do a clean swipe, harvest all these greens, make a nice big pot of mustard greens that we can eat on for several days. After I cut them all, probably gonna need to feed them. They're sucking up the nutrients just like they're sucking up the water. So we'll feed them some Ageratum general purpose, keep that soil nice and charged up, because we'll be able to cut these 3 or 4 times throughout their lifetime. And while we're out here, I figured I'd give you an update on our carrots. So several videos ago, we planted carrots in all 3 of these round raised beds here, and they're popping up nicely. We kept that soil moist for 6 or 7 days after planting. This is our Miami orange carrots, and then we've got a really nice looking bed of yellow carrots here, and those purple carrots over there look great as well. And then in our 4th round raised bed, we've got this Ageratum. You may recall about a month and a half ago, this was looking a little rough. So we pruned it back hard, gave it a good dose of Coop Grow fertilizer, and it has recovered nicely. Got some beautiful purple blooms again. The bees are happy to see those. I'm just loving how this bed is looking for fall. So one thing I've started doing this year is feeding my flowers a lot more. We've always grown flowers amongst all our vegetables to attract the bees, attract some beneficial insects, but we kind of always just planted them, let them do their thing. We'd prune them back a little bit, but we didn't feed them a whole lot. This year I have really seen the value in feeding those flowers, just like we feed the vegetables, and we get a lot longer lifespan out of those flower plants and a lot more blooms for the bees and the beneficial insects. But anyways, back to the greens. So we've got this lettuce bed we planted several videos ago, and this stuff has already started taking off growing. Very little transplant shock with these lettuce plugs, already starting to put on some new leaves and growing fast. And then right here we've got what I've been calling our forever collards, because they've been here an entire year. They're enjoying this cooler weather, got some nice growth. I think we've got enough there to cook a mess. So this will be the first mess of greens I have had in quite some time, so I am pretty excited. Love cool weather and eating a big old pot of greens. Had a lot of people asking about this particular variety, saving seeds from it and all that. So this variety is called Flash. It's pretty easy to find online. I really like this variety. I don't know that it's that much more bolt resistant than some other varieties out there. We've just been keeping these plants really happy in this bed all year long, keeping them fed, keeping them watered. That's mainly why I think they've made it an entire year. But Flash is a really good variety to try if you've never tried it. So what we do here is, once we get us a handful, take our knife, which needs sharpening, just cut those tips off there, because they'll fit in my bag a whole lot easier. Because I'm several hours away from cutting these up, put them in a pot, I'm going to put them in a bag put them in the fridge, keep them cool for the time being. So just slide them in here like this. Tie a little knot in our bag there. Poke us a few air holes, and those will be ready when we get ready. All right, so we got us about 2.5 bags there, which should be enough for a nice pot of collards. These are gonna be perfect for supper tonight because Abram's got a football game later. So as soon as we're done planting more greens in a minute, I'll go inside, get these simmering in a pot with some ham hock or some neck bone. And then when we get back home from the ball game, they'll be ready and we can enjoy them. So we checked on our mustard greens, we harvested some collard greens. Now it's time to plant some more greens. So we've got a few transplants left in our fall garden tray here. Time to get them in the ground. So in this bed where we just harvested those flash collards, I'm gonna break my rotation rules a little bit since we still have collard plants here. Just gonna put more collard plants in there to kind of fill those empty spaces. Gonna plant some more flash collards, and then we've also got these old-timey blue collards I wanna try. Now we already amended this bed back when we did some garden cleanup a few weeks ago. We added some coop grow, we added some mushroom compost. So all we really need to do here is maybe pluck out some of these weeds and some of these volunteer sweet tater plants. Sometimes it's like you can't ever get rid of these little pieces of sweet potatoes down there. I've already pulled a bunch of these. We'll just keep pulling them and eventually they'll all go away, or when we start getting some freezing temps, that will burn them back. There's not a whole lot of them out here, just enough to get on your nerves. So we got our transplants here, got some really good looking collard transplants. So I think what I'll do is for this drip line right here that pretty much has nothing on it except that one collard plant way over there, I think we'll plant all these old-timey blue collards. Now Jeff, who sent us these seeds, says this is a really good tasting collard. He said he eats it raw like a salad, so I'm definitely going to try it that way. I think we do still have some of these seeds on our website at lazydogfarm.com if you want to grow some of these for yourself. So I'm going to put these transplants probably about 1 foot apart along this tape here. That should be plenty. If they're anything like these other plants as far as productivity goes, shouldn't take but a few plants to keep me happy and fulfill my greens cravings. So we got our old-timey blue collards over there, and I've got about 4 good-looking flash collard transplants. So I think I'm just going to kind of fill in some gaps here. I put one right here, and then skip over this way a little bit. Stick another one in right here. That way we've got a little insurance policy in case something happens to these. We've got some more coming along. All right, so that bed should be good for now. Still got some space in the center of the bed there to work with. We may stick some of these celery transplants down the middle there once they get a little bit bigger, or put some more lettuce plugs in there in another week or 2. Now the one green we've yet to plant, one of our favorites, would be kale, and I think I've got the perfect spot right over here in this empty tall bed where I pulled out some pest-ridden squash plants earlier. And looky here what I found as I was walking by this lettuce bed. Can you see that right there? Little green worm trying to saunter his way up there and maybe try to eat some of our lettuce. But I got bad news for him. Today is not your day, buddy. Now we have not amended this bed where we need to put those kale transplants, so we'll do that real quick. Same process we've been doing on all these other beds. We're gonna pull up the drip tape here for just a second, and then we'll put down some coop grow fertilizer. Even though we're just planting 2 rows of greens here, I'm going to go ahead and scatter it all over the bed because we might come back and fill in the gaps later with some more plants. And then on top of that coop grow, I've got 1 more bag of mushroom compost here. It's sitting under the barn. It's kind of waterlogged from all that rain we had this past weekend. It's heavy. We'll get the whole bag dumped out here and then we'll spread it around. And And one thing I've noticed about this mushroom compost is that it really helps these beds retain moisture better than if we didn't have it there. So if you got raised beds and they seem like they dry out all the time, maybe try getting you a little $4 or $5 bag of mushroom compost, adding that, and you should see some improved water retention after you add it. And we'll put our drip lines back down, and since I'm not burying these drip lines, I am gonna put a few staples on them, hold them in place. Usually about 3 staples per line is plenty. So now we're ready for some kale. We've got 2 types here. We've got the dinosaur kale, and then we've got this curly kale here. Now personally, I like the curly kale better because it's much more bolt resistant. It will stay in the garden a lot longer than the dinosaur kale will. But my wife really likes the dinosaur kale, so we'll grow some of it. Probably do a row of dinosaur and a row of curly kale. This curly kale variety we like to grow is called, what is it called? Darkabor, and it holds really, really well. We had some of this growing well into the summer this past year, so once we plant this, it should be here a while. So we'll get our dinosaur kale plugs in right here, about a foot apart or so. These will end up looking like those collard plants that I showed you earlier. As they grow and we pluck off the side leaves, these stalks will get at least 2-3 foot tall a lot of times before they bolt or go to seed. So now we'll get our curly kale over here on this side. And although we like a lot of different types of greens, kale is probably the one we eat the most of, just because it's a quick meal. We can come out here, harvest some kale. It cooks down really fast. Just kind of wilt it in a pot or a pan, throw some sausage or bacon in there, and you got yourself a quick meal. Whereas collards take a little longer to cook. The leaves aren't quite as tender as kale. So kale is our go-to when we don't have any supper plans and just need something quick. All right. So with the exception of those Ageratum flowers over there and that basil that's still kicking, we now have cool season veggies in all of these raised beds. Still a few gaps to fill in. We'll probably put something in between these kale rows here. Got some rutabaga transplants I think would go really good there. That's another green we like to eat a lot, is rutabaga greens. So still a few little gaps to fill in, but it's coming along nicely. So we're going to have quite the variety of greens to enjoy this fall and winter, and that's a good thing because I can eat greens for supper, I can eat greens for lunch, I can even eat greens for breakfast. Now the one green I didn't mention and the one green we won't be growing would be turnip greens. Now I know that sounds pretty blasphemous. Somebody from the south not liking turnip greens or not growing turnip greens, but I just don't care for them. Now I guess I should clarify that. I don't mind the turnip greens themselves, I just don't care for the turnip root. I don't like the turnip root by itself. I don't like it when people chop up the turnip root and put it in a pot of greens. It's a good way to ruin a pot of greens if you ask me. So because we don't like the turnip root, we don't grow turnip greens. I'd rather grow mustard, collards, kale. I'd rather eat rutabaga greens over turnip greens. So turnips is way down on my list, even though it is really, really popular in the South. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what your favorite greens are, or what kind of greens you're going to be growing in your garden this fall or winter. As always, you can find links in the description below to our affiliate partners, coupon codes as well, and also you can find that Coop Grow fertilizer on our website at lazydogfarm.com. If you want to see more greens in action, harvesting, growing greens, all that good stuff, check out this video right here from last year's garden, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.